President Trump is now facing a backlash after his administration announced plans to divert nearly $200 million from health programs to funding the detention of unaccompanied migrant children caught crossing the border. Now, the Department of Health and Human Services had notified Congress in a letter last week that it plans to transfer as much as $186 million from its programs to help cover the costs of the growing number of children being stopped at the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, this transfer would affect several health programs, including the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which would lose about $16.7 million. Medicare and Medicaid, that would lose about $9.8 million, withdrawn from funding for program operations, not benefits, to be fair, as well as $87.3 million overall from the National Institutes of Health, according to The Hill. Because let's just take money from these programs to fund child detention, which is literally costing billions of dollars already. Now, this is different, right? This is different from the child separation policy, which is a policy. There was a recent memo found that was signed by Kirstjen Nielsen that basically outlined the policy for separating kids at the border. Now, they claim for months, oh, no, there's no policy. There's no official policy of child separation at the border. Come on. Just liberal conspiracy theories, right? No, there's an actual policy. And that policy has cost a ton of money. But again, that is separate. Now, the cost of that, by the way, that's over $750 per child in the house in these tent cities. It's actually cheaper to put them with other people, put them in homes, right? And it's actually even more better to send them to live with a relative or an immediate family member. But these are unaccompanied children who I'm talking about. Now, these kids also might have relatives living in the United States, but those relatives might also be undocumented. And now guess what the Trump administration is doing about that? Last week, Immigration and Customs Enforcement senior official Matthew Albence testified to Congress that after HHS and ICE signed a memorandum of agreement to background check and fingerprint potential sponsors of immigrant children, ICE arrested 41 people who came forward. In response to an inquiry from CNN, an ICE official confirmed that 70% of those arrests were for immigration violations, meaning that they were arrested because ICE discovered that they were here illegally. Well, now wait a minute here. So, look, when it comes to background checks and all that for making sure that you place these unaccompanied children in decent homes, that makes all the sense in the world. But, and I even talked about that the last time I did a story related about that. But, of course, you guys said, hey, wait a minute. Do you really want Border Patrol? Do you really want people, the government, being able to basically track these people? What do you think they're going to do with that information? They're going to hand it over to ICE, and they're going to arrest people, and that's exactly what happened. 70% of those arrests. Now, look, there's got to be a way to keep them out of the hands of traffickers, but handing that information over to ICE so they can make immigration arrests for people who step forward to be able to take care of these kids or to offer to take care of these children that are dispossessed, that don't have anyone to care for them while they're here in the United States. That is a dick move. Dick move. Now, the individuals could have been the children's parents or family members, or they could have been fellow members of the homes of adults who applied to care for the children as they fight for a legal right to stay in the United States. Doesn't matter. We're going to arrest them. We're going to deport them anyway. And then we're going to spend a ton of money detaining these children in basically child prisons. And then, of course, when we run out of that money, we're going to rob healthcare to pay for this. But that's not all. The HHS also said that it planned to divert up to $80 million from refugee programs, which are expected to see less use, with the Trump administration slashing the number of refugees admitted into the country each year. Because, you know, fuck refugees, people running from natural disasters exacerbated by climate change, to which the United States is massively contributing to, by the way. Fuck people running from ISIS, a problem that we created by invading Iraq. Fuck people running from drug violence created by our failed war on drugs. No, fuck all those people. The hell with them. We need to take money from the refugee programs now to put it into immigrant detention, which, you're not going to be surprised to know, enriches private prison corporations. There's a reason that when Trump won, the stock for Corrections Corporation of America shot up massively, as well as some of these other private prison corporations. They knew they were going to get a ton of business. And let me tell you, business is booming for these companies. They make money off housing immigrants. Now, in a statement online, Coalition for Health Funding Executive Director Emily Holubowicz alleged that her organization had long suspected that funding to care for children separated from their parents at the border was being drawn directly from the money appropriated for public health and medical research. Remember, it's the Center for Disease Control. The CDC could use that money to help, I don't know, stop the next pandemic. Or at least, like, for example, the next Ebola from happening in the United States, from spreading around. Kind of important to fund the CDC. Kind of important to fund these different programs. Even even the Medicare and Medicaid Services Administration. It doesn't make sense to take all this money to funnel it in to child immigrant detentions. But of course, that's what they're doing. Holubowicz also says that the coalition recognizes the immediate need to care for these children and families, which is true, and the need to help them recover from the trauma they've sustained at the hands of the Trump administration. But depleting already underfunded public health and research programs is not a solution. It is not a solution. Now, David Harvey, executive director of the National Coalition of STD Directors, said that while the HHS decision to transfer money is perfectly legal, it could set a bad precedent. He told The Hill, "We're not faulting the rule, but we think it's a bad precedent to establish, and these funds are desperately needed in the public health system." But Republicans don't care. Donald Trump doesn't care. He would like to privatize the healthcare system. That's what all these Republicans want to do. And now, while the funds, they say, have not been transferred, the funds being transferred had not been allocated for the current fiscal year, Harvey did say that they could have been put towards health initiatives. "We think these funds would have been spent on higher priority items. These are not dollars to sneeze at." Again, they could have been used for actual health, but they don't care. And look, the thing about this is that they say, well, we need to take this money from these programs to fund the immigrant detention. Look, we have to. No, we didn't have to. This is a man-made problem. Now, what makes this current situation different, Holubowicz says, is the administration's own choice to begin its failed family separation policy, necessitating significant transfers from both care and to reunite families as mandated by courts. She also says that there may be no end in sight, with the administration proposing policy changes that would allow for the indefinite detention of immigrant families, which she warned could have significant financial and human costs. So that's what's going on here, right? Let's get rid of the Flores settlement. Now, guys, the Flores settlement is basically what mandates that we cannot keep children with their families since we're no longer separating families at the border, right? Well, the Flores settlement says you can put them in jail, but they can only be there for up to 20 days. And then you actually have to find someplace for them. The Trump administration says we would love to keep these immigrants, these families together in jail, in these camps indefinitely. Throw them in there so that our friends in the private prison industry can make a ton of money off them. That's what's going on here. And look, here's the other thing. There's an irony to this. They're taking money from public health care. But maybe instead of doing that, they should take back tax cuts from the rich and corporations. I mean, they just gave over $1.5 trillion to the wealthy in tax cuts. And now they're even floating tax cuts 2.0, which is an even bigger increase in tax cuts. Oh no, but we have to take money from these health programs to fund immigrant detention right after we gave massive tax cuts. You can't just do a separation policy that necessitates billions of dollars in funding and do tax cuts for the wealthy. But that's exactly what they've done. And now these other programs, unfortunately, will be lacking funding, crucial funding for research and development. But hey, I guess at least if you're in the Trump administration, if you're a MAGA guy, well, that's just making America great again. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.